Friday, Junior Friday Eve. I call it Thursday. Of course, it's a beautiful one. It's the 9th of November, 2023, and this is Wake Up Gian with Jeffrey Smith. As promised, we've got some wonderful ladies in studio with us today to talk about their wonderful organization. It is called Community Advocates of Northern Indiana. Of course, their motto is awareness, advocacy, and of course, action. We've got Miss Tracy Lewis, who's the executive director of this wonderful organization. Of course, she's along with a couple of her colleagues. We're going to meet them in just a second as we find out what they're up to on this wonderful Thursday. So with that being said, we're going to start off. Good morning, ladies. I'm going to go to you in the middle, obviously, start with you, and then, of course, you can defer to your colleagues. But good morning. Happy Thursday.
Absolutely.
Pull the mic just a little closer to you.
All right. Good morning and happy Thursday to you as well, Jeff. Thank you so much for having us here today.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And of course, we're going to have share mics on that end, but go ahead, you introduce yourself if you don't mind. You got here early.
I did. Good morning and happy Thursday.
You can pull it, don't worry about it.
My name is Nicole Otis, and I am the Outreach Director with Community Advocates of Northern Indiana.
Okay, well, welcome, Nicole. We appreciate you. And of course, we're going to meet this third lady in pink.
Good morning. My name is Maisha Jones.
Yes. And your position?
I'm a minister in Northwest Indiana.
Nice.
Simple Christ Ministry.
Yeah, we like to know what you're up to, what you do. So absolutely, give us all the data. Get back to you, Tracy, and kind of tell us a little bit about your organization, what you got going on.
Well, Jeff, we are, as you said, Community Advocates of Northern Indiana. We work with compassion and justice toward empowerment and equity in Lake and Porter County. And so we're just so pleased to be able to offer programs that help to make our community healthy, to eliminate health disparities. And so some of the things that we're up to, I'm so glad to have these ladies with me. Of course, as executive director, I always say we're a small but mighty and scrappy team. And you know, to cover the county, it's about our amazing team, and of course, of which Nicole is one.
Yes.
Can't do what we do without her.
Well, tell us. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to kind of, because you hit on something, I think the audience, I know I'm very curious. You talk about going out here and kind of advocating and really providing services and kind of helping people in need, which I'm all for. Kind of give us an example of what that looks like. So what do you go out here, how do you kind of connect with different folks?
Sure. So I'll start with one that we're really excited about. We work to address areas where there's the highest disparity. And for now, that's infant mortality, mental health, obesity, and so with those, we've got a program called Cure of Souls Churches. And with the Cure of Souls Churches, we work with churches so that the pastors go through a webinar, and the church can become a real front door for mental health care. And that webinar is attended by many ministers, but we're in our second session. So glad to have Minister Maisha Jones. She can tell you more about her experience.
Okay, Mrs. Jones, tell me a little bit about this, because we're talking about mental health, and that's something that we're very serious about and deliberate on the show. And so when we do get organizations, groups, and people who really want to talk about that, bring it to the forefront, specifically in our community, I'm all in. I'm here for this. So please go ahead.
Absolutely. Okay, first of all, how much time I got?
You got time. I'll give you that look.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to give glory to God for being so mindful of me, to put me in a space with this amazing program for such a time as this. And then I want to give honor to the CEO, visionary, and mastermind behind this program, and instructor, Minister Tracy. You have to do that. I'd be remiss if I didn't. But first of all, it has been a very reflective experience and enlightening and igniting experience when it comes to learning about mental health and integrating it in the church. So Cure for Souls has been one that has actually helped cure my soul in some areas. What it does is it reminds you that you must put your oxygen mask on first before you can help someone else. And we see that in the churches, where there's many even walking wounded leaders who are trying to help others. But we want to be able to address our issues first so that we can show up as our best selves in the church, because we see that there are so many people struggling with mental health. And sometimes they don't have the language to share it and express how they're feeling. And so this program to help advocate as a caregiver for care seekers
No, go ahead. Well, no, let me just ask you this. So now that, because I agree with what you said, I mean, that you got to put your oxygen mask on first before you go out there and start rescuing people, whether it be an airplane or you're going into the water and things like that. So I absolutely agree with that. So after kind of learning that, what then happens? What did you learn about going out here helping people? Did you learn how to identify when people have issues that are going on? Because obviously, once again, when we talk about mental health, one of the things I've learned is that sometimes people, and full disclosure, I lost one of my best childhood friends this past March 10th. I still remember it, by suicide. So I can appreciate, sometimes not recognizing the signs and the fact that sometimes people are right next to you and they don't want to have those conversations. And so, did you get any type of tools to identify about that? And then I want you to weigh in, Tracy, as well, if you want to. Go ahead. Whoever wants to talk.
So we're in the process.
Yeah.
What is this, like the 6th or 7th week
Yeah.
of the webinar? And so, yes, those are things we're going to get to.
Yeah.
It's recognizing that it's, as well as Minister Jones shared so many wonderful things.
Yeah.
That oxygen mask analogy is such a critical one.
Yeah.
But it's as well having mental health first aid for church nurses. Suicide prevention,
Right.
For deacons and what have you, so that in addition to the minister,
Yeah.
the church as a body is able to work together to heal themselves. You might be surprised to know that even atheists go to people of faith
Yeah.
when they have some mental health needs.
Yeah.
And so we're just so excited about working with pastors to have this happen out of their churches. And there's a small stipend for churches to be engaged.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, we're excited about that one.
I once remember when I was a little kid, there was a older gentleman who lived on my street who actually had been in the war. He was in the military, and he always used to have a saying. He said, "You know what? There are no atheists in foxholes." So I can appreciate everything that you just said about that. Let's talk about the church's involvement in that, because I think the audience is a little curious. Because when we start to bring the church in, and I'm no theologian, and I don't claim to play one on the radio, so I just like to kind of put questions out there. Does this, is it scripture-based and things like that? Because I think in our society now, and I think you ladies can agree with this at least, is that I think that, the church is right now in a very kind of weird place. Because, and what I mean by that is, there are a lot of our young people, and our society seems to be kind of going away from kind of faith-based actions. I mean, we're no longer a nation that even says under God when it comes down to our Pledge of Allegiance. But yet I think all of us want to kind of ascertain and own some type of spirituality. And so that's kind of like the word that we use. But with that spirituality or whatever you believe in, there has to be some kind of tenet involved, some kind of thing that you believe in. I mean, and I think we live in a society where people want to do what they want to do, but they want some kind of redemption for that action. And so when you're kind of going out here putting programs like this, are they scripture-based?
Great question, Jeff. And you hit on so many important issues that we're dealing with in the contemporary space. It is scripture-based, but it is not Bible-beating.
Okay, that's fair.
Everything that we do is respectful.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do in the COVID-19 hesitancy education space in a minute.
Yeah.
But everything we do is with respect.
Yeah.
And so that for people who...
Well, explain that so the audience can understand respect.
Sure. So that means meeting people where they are.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to proselytize.
Right.
I don't need to get into God's business. It's the Lord who draws.
Right.
So if that's to happen in one of the sessions, fine. If
Right.
it isn't, fine. If this person is coming because they need someone to talk to, and I'm just going to go ahead and go to something we got to start next year, which is just listening rooms.
Okay.
It's a very healing thing to be heard,
Right.
to be seen.
Yeah.
And so we're doing that. And I'll let Minister Maisha talk a little bit more about the respect piece.
Yeah,
That's something we have covered.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, so in retrospect for the respect piece, it has just been a safe place
Mm-hmm.
for us to learn about so many things of how to cure how to be a cure for souls.
Right.
But actually learning like how people have different myths about different things.
Yeah.
As it pertains to family, their childhood.
Yes.
Showing up in their adulthood.
Right.
Marital things, singleness, parenting, all of those things are being addressed. And as we learn about it to help other people, we're actually addressing the things for ourselves.
Of course, absolutely.
So it brings up things, hidden spaces that were there that maybe you didn't know were there.
Yeah.
And so it's so profound because it's making us to become stronger as a leadership.
Right.
Because that's what this world needs. Stronger, healthy leadership to show up present for those in need.
Yeah, yeah.
And so my heart's desire is for this to go global.
Right.
Because every church needs to participate in this. I wish I had this program years ago.
Absolutely.
Probably when I first started.
Yeah.
As a young adult.
Yeah, I like it. I like what I'm hearing. And go ahead, Tracy. Kind of, I know you want to add on to this.
Thank you. I mean, and she's just so tremendous,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You know, we talk about how if someone comes to you and, you know, this church is Baptist, but this person is Pentecostal, is Church of God in Christ, it does not matter. It doesn't matter. Need is need at the point of their
Talk about what outreach looks like, because I'm very curious about that. But I always like to kind of use my own little personal examples, not that they're any big deal. But I remember, I mean, I was baptized when I was, when I was born. I was at First AME Church where my grandparents were working and things like that. But I necessarily wasn't, growing up and going to church regularly. My parents were members of United Methodist out in Miller, but I grew up in a Methodist type of environment. Now, having said that, I remember back, and I tell the story on this show to the audience. I've told the story, and that when I got in my 20s, when I was in college, in particular, I think I was either at Hampton or Tuskegee, one of them. I got into this place where I was looking for something where I needed a little bit of direction. I wanted a religion or a religious experience that kind of had, as I used earlier, the tenets. And so what I found myself was, I remember there was a gentleman who bought me a beautiful leather-bound Quran. And I attended to read it. I went to a couple of meetings at the mosque and things like that. I ended up going to Catholicism. I converted to Catholicism back then. And I always just tell the reason is that for me, I needed some rules. I needed a religion that kind of told me that I couldn't do it. I needed a religion that sometimes was a little bit unforgiving, in which when I knew I was doing something that was off the reservation, I could just look and I knew what I was doing was wrong, rather than something that I felt was fluid growing up, where it was always these shades of gray. And so going back to when we were talking about advocacy and listening to people, because I love the fact that you're embracing this with the ministry. Sometimes you might get people that come in that are looking for those very same things. While you might meet them where they are, they don't know where they are. They want to be elevated to something else. They want to be told that they're better than the situation that they're in. And those are the conversations that I was, wanted to ask you about.
Oh, absolutely. I always say that, first of all, the folks who are coming to a pastor and they're wanting to kind of find their faith walk, then that's going to be a different discussion than someone who comes in crisis.
Yes.
And so for that person who comes and they're looking for something specific like that, I like to say, even though religion's a dirty word these days, people don't like the structure that you're talking about. But God has a team. And like with any team, you got to practice. You got to read the playbook. You got to know all these things. You got to bond with your team members. And so it's really important to know that more than this is about, trying to make sure that people know about the religion. It's for people to know what God is calling them to do. For them to be. And so I love that in your search of faith, you said, hey, this is what I need. God met you there. And so as ministers, but as people who are in this program, it's the understanding that beyond me, you're looking for someone beyond me, beyond these ministers. And so we're connectors. That's what
I like that.
That's what Community Advocates is all about. Is connecting people to the resources that they need. This is the community health space.
I like it. And I want to go and talk about outreach, but Tracy, I want to kind of ask you this because obviously the audience probably is expecting me to ask it, because we talk with a lot of organizations and a lot of nonprofits. And one of the things that I always like to ask nonprofits is, not only about what you're doing in the community, but do you partner with others? Because I think a lot of times, in particular in our communities, in which there's a lot of 501c3s, a lot of nonprofits pop up. And I'm sure you all see it in the church. I mean, because I can go on. It's a whole nother show. I'm not going to suck you into my HE double hockey sticks by talking about this. But you tend to see organizations that are born off of people who don't work with others well. They want to go out here. Maybe they're disgruntled. Maybe they're rivalrous. I don't know. I'm not going to judge people. But they go out here and they start an organization. And then the community has to deal with a lot of redundancy. And so the people that need these issues or need these services are at a disservice because there's so many things coming at them that are the same instead of a couple of, sometimes a person might have ideas and talent, but there's already an organization that's set up to do it, and they just might need you to come and be a part of it, volunteer, bring that idea to the table. But instead, in our communities, we want to go and get our own shingle, get our own label and business card and logo and do our own thing and go out here and kind of muddy up the waters and add to the confusion. And so I want to ask you how you feel about that.
Oh, Jeff, that's such a great question, and absolutely, we can't do what we do without our partners.
Yeah.
We are to disrupt system, and so everything we do has the partner element. And so with that, I want to bring Nicole in to talk about all these different examples of where we partner.
Go ahead, Nicole.
The area tobacco control.
Okay.
And we did a community conversation at Bailey STEM Academy.
Nice.
And we did bring in community partners. We had Dr. Janet Seabrook of Community
Good
Health
friend
Net,
of ours.
who came and she informed the students and staff and public that was able to come in about how tobacco impacts their body.
Yeah.
From the developing brain of an adolescent
Yes.
to your lungs, your health systems, and leads to disease.
Right.
We had Mr. John L. Sasser of Merrim Health. He works in behavioral health.
I know him.
And he came to discuss how it impacts their mental health.
Yes.
How you think that smoking or vaping will help you calm down when it increases your anxiety and your depression.
Yes, it does.
It adds to those negative feelings.
Yeah.
And takes you lower. Then we had Lori Latham. Yes, Lori Latham.
Councilwoman Lori, who's listening right now.
Yes, she's awesome, and she is a great advocate, and she discussed how tobacco impacts our environment. She gave us the environmental aspect.
That's
of
Lori.
It. And those butts, which you see them on the ground all the time, that butt will be there forever.
Yeah.
They never completely disintegrate.
Right.
And it gets into our soil, which gets into our food,
Right.
goes into our water supply. So she made sure that everyone understood it's not just trash.
Yeah.
It's killing us.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Like I said, Lori's our girl. Congratulations to Lori. She's now moved from at large. She's officially my council person in the first district. So we want to give her a shout out. I know her and her wonderful husband are probably listening right now, so I wanted to congratulate her personally. But let's get back to you, Tracy. Go ahead.
Yeah, and if I can share, we have, Community Advocates started, we were the former Lake County Minority Health Coalition.
Okay.
The mouth for another mouthful. And said, this community doesn't need another coalition as much as we need a beloved community.
Yeah.
And the community advocates, it's not a traditional advocate, it's an advocate that comes alongside and helps.
Right.
And so with the Beloved Community Coalition, we bring together partners. We're working with everybody from the Lilly Foundation to Methodist hospitals to a young lady who's an entrepreneur who's got her own janitorial service, to churches, to government agencies, to legislators, to everybody you can imagine. It's going to take us all coming together to disrupt these systems, to realize this goal of empowerment and equity in our community. And so we can't do what we do without our amazing partners.
Absolutely.
We had a community baby shower here.
What'd that look like?
Oh my goodness. I mean, this is a huge affair. Nicole, you want to talk more about it?
Yeah.
Our community baby shower was held about 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And we had community partners, all that Tracy just listed, but everybody who works in the realm of infant or maternal health was there, as well as mental health.
Yeah.
We did presentations that helped to educate those expecting families on how to have healthy pregnancies, healthy births. We had our doula there who was able to connect with these moms. We were able to give them information on even bringing baby home, ensuring baby sees first birth. Those are all the things that we are passionate about, making sure that people are educated. And a lot of times it's just, I'm a first-time mom. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Or, hey, I did this 10 years ago with my first child. I'm getting back into it. But things have changed. We've learned over this time.
Right.
So we want to make sure you know what's best for baby.
I like that. And I want to ask the three of you. I want all three of you, if you want to weigh in on this, because for the people that listen to the show, this is kind of like the things we've talked about, because we're kind of very solutions oriented to what's going on in our world and in our country and in our city, more importantly. And as we kind of embark on this new administration and this new vision, which, Eddie is one of our friends, our supporters on this show, we all understand, and I try to let the audience know that we're all in this together. We can't just sit back and, Eddie's not going to come in here and wave some magic wand and get Gary to that vision. Of course he's got ideas, of course he's got vision, but we have to go out here and kind of be conscious about our part, and we really play a big role. That means as simple as not throwing litter on the ground. And so what I want to ask you is another one of our components, and it's not just here, it's in a lot of our urban communities. How do we go out here and get these children? Because I'm getting to the point, and I have to catch myself on the show sometimes when we talk about it, I'm not at the point where I want to start writing off generations as being lost, but I do understand that there are generations that are very close to that line where you're just kind of like, okay, the culture that they're immersed in, the music that they're listening to, some of the things they're consuming in their body and soul, as well as the food, is making some of these young people kind of have behavioral problems. There's some innate things going on in them, and then when they turn into predators, i.e. they're going out here carjacking ladies who are just at the stoplights. They're going out here hurting each other. We had a friend of ours a couple of years ago who literally went on Grand Street to get a paper on a Saturday morning, and were confronted by two young men who were about 17, 16 years old, and he didn't have a chance. I always talk about that story. If I had to choose about getting mugged and held up, I'd much rather get the 35-year-old to 40-year-old drug addict or criminal, because he or she at least is trying to get something, and I have a chance of getting out of there if I just give them what they want. If I'm running up against some of these teenage predators, I can give them everything. They're still going to pull the gun and shoot me. And so how do we reach these people without kind of, these young people who have so much potential, without kind of discarding them?
Jeff, you hit on a myriad of different things. One of the things we address is social determinants of health.
Yeah.
And so we got to kind of look at how we have folks end up like that. And many years ago, I worked at the employment office. And I felt like, it was right around the time when folks were coming out of the mill.
Yeah.
And making, $50,000 in the mill and trying to figure out where will I get paid that same amount of money?
Right, because I got expenses that are built on that.
There it is. And so they were falling between the cracks. And I always thought, they got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And so part of the reason I'm in this work is the philosophy that together we're better.
Mm-hmm.
We can't leave anyone behind. So one of the things that we've done, and actually Senator then.
Yeah, he's still
Eddie
senator
Melton,
until the first.
Until the first. State Senator Eddie Melton and Councilwoman Ty Atkins were part of youth community conversation that we had. Now, we prepped our young folk and worked with them on the front end to say, what are your issues? What are your challenges? When you get before these legislators, what do you want to share?
Right.
And then, what are you willing to do?
Yes.
How are you willing to be a part of it? You think the city of Gary needs to be cleaned up? Are you willing to do this? So before you ask that state senator anything, let us take the time to sit down and come up with some strategies that will employ not just your passion, but your participation.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that we've done. And we're real intentional about being in schools, about teaching
as I heard at Bailey, I love that.
At Bailey, Beveridge, Williams, East Chicago, Washington.
Yes.
I mean, we got to cover a lot of ground. And so just making sure that everything we do, we're embracing
Yeah.
the community and trying to meet them at their need. And of course, like you mentioned, can't do without partners.
Right.
So working collaboratively to come up with these strategies for collective action. And so that community conversation is one. At the height of the pandemic, when kids were doing e-learning,
Right.
we brought kids on Zoom.
Yeah.
Talk to us. What's going on?
Yeah.
So our teachers were able to voice and say, this is our struggle. This is what we're going through.
Exactly.
Youth were able to say, this is our struggle. Some of the students who said, I need my teacher looking at me.
Mm-hmm.
Or others said, the teacher doesn't know how to use the software either.
Right.
So just really knowing that if you're going to attack any problem, you got to get all sides.
Yeah, you
gotta
have
get
to.
all
You
those
got to get in there.
perspectives. Right. And so we're about connecting again and having those resources.
I like this. I really like the fact that you ladies are really kind of out here doing it, and as I said, specifically to the pastor, because we have these kind of provocative discussions, and as I said, as somebody who is kind of operating in Christianity, I always believe that there is a my wife is a big T.D. Jakes person, so T.D. Jakes is on in our house 24/7. It's probably on at our home right now. But having said that, I get the opportunity to watch the relationship that he has with his wife and his daughters and things like that. And as I said, kind of coming up and you're looking around what's going on, I do think we need to kind of embrace the fact that women add a lot to the table when it comes down to going out here and kind of spreading spirituality as well. It's not necessarily a subjective role or where you're kind of second tier. It's just I'm hearing a lot of good ideas, and that's kind of where I started off, just asking about the spiritual context and the cloth. But I definitely appreciate what you're doing. These are some great ideas. Yeah, go ahead. It's a compliment. It's not even a question. No, but one of the things before we get out of here, what I want to do is I always do this with our guests. I like to kind of get a little bit of a bio. I like to find out like where you all grew up, and of course, if you grew up in Gary, you got to tell me your high school, because that's your path to how you got here. Now, I'm gonna start off with you, Tracy.
Horseman school, we are mighty proud.
Wait a minute, I gotta say this. I'm sorry, I went to Roosevelt.
Turn off his mic. I know it's your short.
You all had a fight song. You didn't even have a football field.
Anyway, see.
No, go ahead.
They're all closed now.
Exactly.
In any case, you gotta love that. We still have that spirit.
We still have it. Yeah.
You've got that spirit. I do as well.
Yeah.
So I'm born and raised in Gary. Only left when I went to school. My first few years post college, I was away. But
of course,
this is the city that I love. And care about. So I've come to this region. I came. My uncle. My maiden name's Gillespie. So my uncle Jardis Gillespie.
Yes.
My grandparents were.
My councilman as well. He was
Get out of here!
Yeah,
really?
he was good friends of my dad.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
So I was raised really in that.
Yeah.
I like
I can
to say
see it now.
my grandparents are, just took care of the block.
Yeah, they did.
So that was just in me. From a long time, and as a minister. I've been prayerful about as I move from the employment office space to the nonprofit space.
Yeah.
How can we bring these concepts?
Yeah.
Again, not proselytizing, but how can we bring these concepts to heal?
Yeah.
And Cure of Souls is actually born of man can cure, but only God can heal and make whole.
Yeah.
And so just to bring that to community is how all of this started for me.
Absolutely. I don't mind that at all. While we're getting that, we'll go to you, Pastor. You go ahead. I want to know your story. First, tell us where you were born.
I was born here in Gary.
Okay.
I was here probably till about 4.
Okay.
But I attended the schools up until I was in 3rd grade.
Yeah.
I attended most of the private schools.
Yeah.
Holy Trinity.
Yeah.
Holy Angels.
Yeah.
Sacrament. And so.
My wife's listening. Yeah, she went to Holy Angels. So yeah.
Yes.
So you were in the parochial system.
That's right.
Yeah. There you go.
So, but then I get transferred.
How are you not Catholic? Because I know why you're not Catholic.
You already know. So from that point, we did navigate out to the Maryville area.
Okay.
and I was put into the Maryville schools, and so that was a huge culture shift for me. Right. And my brother at the time, he was a little younger, so we experienced a lot of things, racism, all the things. So we had to grow up really quick. But from my roots from Gary, both my grandparents are from Gary, and so we spent our summers in Gary and lots of time here as both of my parents were working. And so...
You know we're just down the street from Maryville, right?
I know. Well, we call it South Gary now. We call it South Gary now.
I spent my summers in Gary. I'm like, we're just right here.
We're right there. Yeah. So I spent a lot of time here and had a lot of friends and family here, and so I really enjoyed it. So I actually ended up going off to school. I'm a teacher for almost 20 years in the school systems in Maryville. I went back to the schools to teach. Retired.
You know Miss Dunlap?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
And so after I did retire to kind of work more so on the ministry side and be home with my children more. And so right now what I do is work, of course, with people in the church, and additionally from home, I help women beautify themselves with self and soul care. And so I help people take care of their skin and their souls and things like that. I do a lot of things with wellness products, and so I'm very passionate about curing yourself from the inside out, because I think that's where it starts, and a lot of us don't have knowledge of what's inside of us can affect what's on the outside of us. And to Minister Tracy's point, as far as the youth in the community, the transparency is what's going to bring them in. Sitting down and maybe sharing some things that you experience. And then they will open up, because you need to gain that trust. And so I am so passionate about doing that, because as a child, sometimes we didn't have those spaces.
Of course,
And the more we didn't have those spaces, that's why we see a culture shift. So we need to be present for those youth and young adults who need a safe space. And then we can actually point them back to maybe some of their inner childhood issues that they don't know about.
Absolutely.
And once we can begin to work on that, the healing begins to start. And then we begin to see a healthy homes. Healthy families. Healthy churches. Healthy communities.
Absolutely.
You know, healthy states. A more healthy world.
I like that. Before I go to you, Nicole, I want to kind of piggyback on something that you said, because this is something that we talk about on the show, because you're absolutely right. And obviously you've been in the classrooms, you've been very up close with these young people. I think that, we have to go back, and, I was the only child, and one of the things that I did, I read a lot, and a lot of things occupy my time. In addition, I think we have we've taken away children's innocence and their natural curiosity, their wonderment, and all those things that you have when you're a kid that you're born with. It doesn't matter your economic status and things like that. When you come into this world, it's a curious thing. You should be asking questions all the time. You shouldn't be kind of forced to. Right now it seems that we're putting a lot of stuff on young people. We're making them grow up too fast. We're exposing them to things too fast. And then we're wondering why they're burnt out at like 13 and 14 and 12. I always say this all the time, and I get it. I understand why I always call it the soccer mom culture, participation trophies. But my wife and I do these TEDx speeches, TEDx Gary. And one of the things that I learned at one of our TEDx Gary women events, I wish I had known this when I was younger. This is where we had women speak. Jocelyn was one of our speakers. Chelsea was one of our speakers. But the theme that we had them speak on was basically failure. And I have used this as an opportunity to tell young people right now, and anybody that I come in contact with, is that I want, if I could go back and talk to my old self, I tell myself to just go out here and fail, because that is your litmus test. When you come out on the other side, you know exactly what you're made of. That's where your confidence comes. And I think we don't do that with kids. We got kids that are so scared about making mistakes, and they don't even dream, and they don't do those things. And, that's kind of our fault. So I don't want to get up from one of my tangents. I want to learn about Nicole. Go ahead.
Well, I was born and raised in Gary.
Okay.
All my life, all my schools. I graduated from Horace Mann High School.
Okay. Now I know why you knew the words to that darn song.
I sure did, because I was also a cheerleader. I stayed in Gary all my life. I graduated from IUN with my degree in health service management. I came into this realm because, even when I worked for corporate America, one of my focus areas was community health. I bridged our organization to the community to do all of our outreach there. And then when COVID hit, that was no longer the place for me to be. I knew it a long time before then, but that gave me that opportunity. Then I was connected with Tracy, and it has been smooth sailing into my dream, and it's been great.
No, you know what? You know, you're not the only one. There's a theme that has happened for the past 2 years since we've come over here with our show, and that is that we understand, and COVID's bad. We always have to say the disclaimer. The majority of people that I've had on this show that come over with the business and the things like that, they happened during COVID. When the world shut down and we had to really kind of take a stock of ourselves, we either sat at the table across from our significant others and we said, you know what, we can't keep going into savings. And now, because the world was stopped, all of a sudden that little arts and crafts hobby that you had, that little idea that had been haunting you for 15, 20 years, but you're looking at the bills and the kids and it'll never be time. Now, all of a sudden, you're like, you know what, let's have at it. And then next thing you know, businesses were born, people are a lot happier, and they're doing what their natural calling is. So, you know, I just want to tell you, you're speaking to the choir when it comes down to that. You know, I'm going to ask you, Tracy, before we get ready to wrap it up, give us some logistics. You know, how can people find you? What do you have, you know, regular office hours, and how can people volunteer and help out and want to be a part of this?
Thank you so much for that, Jeff. You know, if I may, I'd like to talk about some of our last things.
Yes.
Some things we've got going. I mentioned the listening rooms. We've got doula. We do empowerment where we go into schools. It's a program called Empowered. It's fitness and mental health and Nutrition. And so we've got that. We've got the Beloved Community Coalition that meets quarterly. We do mental health for youth in the Boys and Girls Club.
Nice.
We've got a lot of things going, so we want to make sure that partners, that folks who are interested know that we love working with them and are looking forward to working with them. Please, our email address, well, let me say this, our website, canihelp.org.in. We're on Facebook, canihelp.org.in.
Community Advocates of
I'm
Northern
sorry.
Indiana.
Thank you, Amber. Community Advocates of Northern Indiana. I think it's NI on Facebook, but you can find it as well at the website. And of course, if you Google us, you're going to get lots of ways to get in contact. But the website is probably the best because it gives you all that information.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Nicole.
And coming up on next Thursday, the 16th, is the Great American Smokeout. We do work in tobacco control. And on this day, the American Cancer Society encourages everyone who is a smoker to take just one day to not smoke. That includes vaping. And we're asking any institution that allows smoking, that's your bars, that's the casino, we're asking them to just take one day off and say, this is a smoke-free environment. Let's have one day of no smoke, no vape, being able to breathe in clean air.
Right. I'm glad you clarified that, because when Amber was telling me earlier, I thought you were having like a rib cook-off or something like that. So I'm so glad. I mean, once in a while, listen, I know I play smart on the show, but trust me, this is where I really live. I thought it was straight a barbecue coming up or something, but
Jeff, if you give us cigarettes, we'll give you a rib tip. How about that?
I wanted to say, ladies, I absolutely appreciate it. I think that what you're doing out there is really literally God's work. I think you're a very good asset to our community. I hope people will put you in their Rolodex as a viable resource, and definitely go out there and keep doing what you're doing. I really appreciate it. I'm going to have you back on the show. You know that, don't you?
I'm looking forward to it, and I can't thank you for what you do.
I appreciate that.
Informing our community.
So
what we do can't happen unless we get the word out. And so this intelligent discourse is critical, and I hope you will have us back. Thank you so much, Jeff.
All right, we're going to take a break.